My wife doesn't necessarily enjoy being up on the stage, but she is indeed the better half of who I am, and so I'm very thankful. For Joe, yesterday, we were in the mezzanine, guys, got that mezzanine, and we were up there and we had done a meeting, and Joe came up and he was going to get some cookies, and he asked me if I wanted some. His servant heart. I said, yeah, I'd like some chocolate chip cookies, Joe. Could you give me this? So Joe goes over there, and I see him. He gets the chocolate chip cookies, and I'm turning and talking to somebody else. And I'm talking, and I'm talking, and I'm talking, and I'm waiting, and I'm looking around. And I look over there, and Joe, if no surprise to those of you who know him, is talking to somebody. But he's so into talking to them, he is eating my chocolate chip cookies. Which is why we love Joe Hoover so much, because whoever he is talking to, he is 100% into that person. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you, brother. It is a privilege for me to be here, very much. We, of course, grew up. We brought our kids to Wainema. I was a kid, came to the camp here. So this is truly a privilege for me to be here. So thank you for that. I need to get something here. Sorry. They told me, don't pick it up by the lid, and I said I wouldn't do that. Okay. That's just what you go there. Okay. I don't know if anyone has told you recently, but this world has a few problems. I know. Joe forgot to mention that at the beginning, so that the world, we have financial, we have political, we have all kinds of problems. When I was a kid, the world had problems too, but we always knew where to find the answer. If we had problems, we would, back up there. Mom. That's where you go. You have problems, you go to mom, and mom had the answers, and it was great. And my mom had answers that were kind of mostly the same over and over again, depending on the category. For instance, if it was a health-related issue, then it was Vicks Vapor Rub. You know, you rub it on there, cold, broken arm, whatever, it didn't matter. You rub it on. If it didn't do anything, it smelled like it should have done something, so that was the answer. And if it was a relational problem, it was just be nice. Just be nice to people. That was the whole advice. Be nice. And for those that didn't work, the second half was keep your hands to yourself. That was for my brothers who didn't listen to the first part. They didn't do the nice. So just keep your hands to yourself, okay? And if it had to do with achievements, school, athletics, whatever kind of thing, it was just do your best. The old follow your dream, it really wasn't big back then when I was a kid. Disney wasn't political at that point. So it was just do your best, work hard, and that kind of thing. Now that, as I got older in years, I began to wonder if mom really did actually have all the answers. That maybe she was just faking a little bit. Because when I got kids, I realized I didn't have the answers, and I had to fake it a lot, just, yeah, do that, and then the usual answer is because I said so. We didn't really have the real answer. We just, try to go along with that. And as I even got older, I began to even think of some of those answers that mom had. Oops, back up here. Well, I'll just leave it on that one because it didn't work. And I realized I'm not really sure that all of those were all as advantageous as I thought. I mean, I don't really think now Vicks solves every physical problem. I rubbed some on my stomach and I'm still fat. Didn't help a bit. Not a bit. I crammed some in my ear and I couldn't hear any better with that. It didn't work at all. I don't know. Just be nice. It's still a good idea. It really is. But, after going to Africa and being in the markets and stuff, I found not everybody plays by those rules. And they don't all keep their hands to themselves. They don't do that. And not everybody who says, you're my friend, is really trying to help you. We found out that just doesn't always work. And to just try your best. Well, yes, that's a good idea. But that doesn't always mean it's going to work out like you would like it to. Sometimes we try, and it just doesn't fix it. And maybe even sometimes it's even worse, is sometimes we actually try, and we achieve our goal, but life isn't any better. And that can be a real hard point when we finally get there and find that didn't really fix things after all. Elijah found that out. We're going to be looking in 2 Kings. There we go. And we're in 2 Kings chapter 19 this morning. But before I get right into the passage, I want to do a little background on Elijah. As you know, Elijah was one of our prophets of God, mighty man of God. With that, you may not be also quite aware that Elijah was, there we go, a missionary. Because Elijah actually was born over Transjordan, over east of the river. He was over on the other side of the track type thing. And God sent him up to the northern kingdom. Now, it's not really that far distance, but culture, there's a shift. And so he was a missionary that God had sent to the northern kingdom. And as far as missionaries go, his first few years were not necessarily an astounding success. We're told people didn't respond to his preaching. They didn't come to him. They didn't respond, and there wasn't a turning a thing. He didn't get along with the authorities very well. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel did not like him. In fact, they were trying to kill him most of the times he was there. So he didn't really get along with authorities well. And as far as economic improvement for the people in his area, he prayed for no rain, and for no rain, it didn't rain for 3.5 years. Famine, crops died, people died. I'm not sure that he would have got the Missionary of the Year award from the people there. They weren't necessarily appreciative of what he was doing. And it wasn't easy for Elijah either. He was struggling, he had to rely on God to provide his food and then rely on the kindness of strangers. Kind of sounds like missionaries. And it was hard. It was hard what he was going through and not seeing positive success and just seeing the struggles and just making it day by day and waiting for God to do something. I think Elijah was just, if God would just do something big, if he would just somehow open up the doors or something, then finally life would be good again. Finally life would be better if God would just do something big. And so that's where we come up now. And in chapter 18, now you may remember, chapter 18, we have the story of Elijah on Mount Carmel. And you know the story there where there's 2 altars built, and the prophets of Baal are there, and Elijah and the prophets of Baal, there are hundreds of people there, prophets, and the whole thing was to see who was really God. And Baal's prophets tried, and nothing happened. And then it was Elijah's turn, and he prayed to God, and fire came down, and boom! And everybody went, wow. And the people there was we don't know how many people, but there was probably thousands that were gathered around looking at Mount Carmel. And all of them said, the Lord is God. Man, that must have been a moment. That must have been a moment. When to see that power and to see God answer that thing, and the people and they chased after the prophets of Baal, and they killed all them. Killed them all. But the day wasn't done. The day wasn't done. Right after that, then Elijah then turns. Okay, we won't have those slides either. Some of my slides are mystified. They're going away without me knowing what they're doing. They're mystifying me there. That's okay. Not only that happened, but then Elijah knelt down and he began to pray. And he began to pray. And he prayed again and prayed again, and we're told a little cloud came out. And pretty soon the cloud came out, and dark and rain, and the monsoons came. And can you imagine, after 3.5 years of dry and desert, what it would have been like to all of us in that rain? I envision Elijah just standing in the rain, just dancing in the rain. Oh man, what a day. But it wasn't even done yet. Elijah told the king, you better take off, or you're going to get stuck in the mud or whatever. Go back home in the chariot. And so King Ahab got in his chariot, and he took off, and it says God gave Elijah the supernatural ability to outrun King Ahab in his chariot. Man, as a kid, I used to dream of that. Devils get flash Elijah right there. He took off, and he ripped right down there, flying down. And he got to think, and I had to say, what a day, best day ever for Elijah, right? It's the kind of day that missionaries would love to put in their newsletters. You know, have the pictures, you know, maybe not of the prophets being slaughtered, that wouldn't go so well, but the rest of it, I mean, it would really gone well. And Elijah must have thought, finally life is gonna be good. Finally, finally things are gonna go well. So that's where we pick up now as we come into chapter 19. And we're gonna read first off the first 4 verses of chapter 19. It says, now Ahab told Jezebel everything that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. And Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more so if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like one of those of them. And he was afraid. He got up and he ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and he left his servant there, and he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a bloom tree, and he asked for himself to die and said, enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Elijah heard what King Jezebel wanted to do, and he panicked. He ran, left the northern kingdom, headed to the south. Get out, run, leave. And we might wonder, what's the deal? He was this mighty man of God who just saw God do incredible things, and now he's running away, throwing up the flag. Just kill me. What happened to our mighty man of God here? Now, it's true that Queen Jezebel was, saying she was going to kill him, but Queen Jezebel had been saying that for a couple of years. That wasn't any change. And in reality, I think that kind of was the problem, is that life hadn't changed. Elijah had finally got what he had been looking for. He had finally got God to do something amazing and got what he had wanted to, only to find out, you know what, it didn't make life any better. He was still dealing with people who wouldn't listen. He was still in a struggle. Even though those people had said, praise God and the Lord is God, we know from history they didn't turn back to God. The northern kingdom kept going the wrong direction. It was kind of like, remember 9/11? After that happened, that the churches were filled, and everybody's going, praise the Lord, Lord save America, and all that kind of thing. And then a couple months later on, everybody's going right back down the same path again. Even worse. Elijah was looking at the situation, and he's going, man, what's ever going to change? What we find, and I think we find this often ourselves, is that sometimes we chase after a goal and we're going for it and we're just hoping, if I can just get here, if I can just get well, if I can just get this permit, if I can just get this finance doing, if I can just get out of debt, if I can just, then life will be good. I was reading an article that was talking about a lot of some of the Olympian athletes, and how many of the ones who, after they got the gold medal, went into a time of depression afterwards. Because they finally had achieved their goal, and then it was like, but life was still, they were still who they were. It hadn't changed who they were. And here's Elijah, and he is going into what we would indeed call depression. Now, I might make a little fun of Elijah, but depression is nothing to laugh at. We know that. And it's real, and it's hard. And no amount of just trying to think positive or trying to be more spiritual is just going to make it go away. Elijah's there, and so it's not necessarily that surprising that Elijah was depressed after seeing this mighty thing and yet finding life was still as it was. What is surprising is how God reacted to Elijah. Let's continue on. Now in verse 5. Then he lay down and fell asleep under the bloom tree. But behold, there was an angel that touched him and said to him, Arise and eat. And he looked and beheld, and there was at his head a round loaf of bread, cooked on hot coals, and a pitcher of water. So he ate and drank and laid down again. But the angel of the Lord came back to him a second time and touched him and said, Arise and eat, because the journey for you is too long. So he arose and ate and drank and journeyed in the strength of the food for 40 days and 40 nights to Hebron, the mountain of God. Okay, so we might think, and Elijah might think, here Elijah has, he's done the great things, he's seen God, and now he's just fallen, he's just really kind of failed. He's in depression, he just says, kill me, he's run away. And we might think, Elijah's going, God is not going to be happy with me. He's looking for a lightning bolt or something along that. And I think we have been there before. We're in the midst of our weakness, whether it be depression or whether it be a fail, whatever. Failure's not necessarily a mystery to a lot of us. And when we have run into that situation, we're often looking, thinking, God, he's got to be upset. He's got to be annoyed. He's got to just be fed up. We're looking around, is he going to smack me now? But what does God do here? He doesn't smack Elijah. Rather, he does what actually a good kind of parent does, is that when they have a child who is tired and is hungry and is frustrated and they're throwing a fit, if they're a good parent, they're not going to walk up and smack them. Come on now with that. No, they're going to know they need to be held. They need to be fed. They need rest. And God is the greatest parent of all. He loves us more than even our own. And so God tells Elijah, rest, eat. Another thing that God doesn't do, though, is that he doesn't necessarily explain himself to Elijah. I mean, we've been there where we're struggling and we're going, God, why does it have to be so hard? Why can't it be easy? And where are we going? I don't know, maybe you've never asked that question, but I've done it a few times. And God has always explained himself. This is why, Bob. This is how it happens. And no, God has never explained himself. I've asked in times and he doesn't explain it to me. Sometimes he lets me know he's still there, thank you, but he doesn't explain it. And he doesn't explain it to Elijah either. He doesn't tell him, well, this is why we're doing this. He just tells him, you want some answers? This is what you're doing. I want you now to go to the mountain of God. Pick up, go. And that's where the answers are found, the mountain of God. But keep in mind, the mountain of God, Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, we might call it, it's not right next door. It's a couple hundred miles away. And it's a couple hundred miles away walk in some of the most beautiful, luscious, easy walking territory you've ever seen. If I'm Elijah, I might go, can't you tell me here? Or maybe send me to Hawaii or something like that, you have to send him out into the wilderness. And when we struggle sometimes, when God doesn't answer those questions, how we want them or in what direction we want them, the truth was that Elijah was in no place to hear the answers that God had for him. God had some answers, but he was in no position to hear it right now. He was not in the attitude, his heart. He was just consumed by his own problems. God could have given him the answers, and Elijah wouldn't have done it, made effect. Sometimes the only way we're going to get to a place where we can hear is when we go through the wilderness. We don't like that. But that is not God punishing us. That is not God saying, I don't care about you. That is not God yanking our chain. Sometimes that's the only way that we're going to get to where we need to be, and that is an act of God's love, the saying, all right, but the road goes through the wilderness. So Elijah goes, but the beautiful thing of this is that, if Elijah could say, but I can't do it, I'm not strong enough, And the answer was, yes, you're right. You're too weak. You can't do it. But God, I'll give you what you need. He gave him the food. He gave him I'll give you the strength you need. It's going to be through the wilderness, but I will give you what you need to make it through the journey. God doesn't promise it's going to be an easy road all the time, but he always does promise, I will give you what you need to make it through. If I call you there, I'll walk with you through it. So he called Elijah to the mountain of God, and Elijah goes, and he makes the journey. It takes him like 40 days, I think he's walking through the wilderness there. I'm not the Old Testament expert, as you probably can't tell so far, but with that. But he walks through there, and and we'll continue on our story. It says, here we go, if I can find out where it says it. Here we go, starting verse 9. Then he came there, to the mountain, to a cave, and spent the night there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him and said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? We'll come back to that one. And he said, I've been very zealous for the Lord. The Lord, the God of the armies, for the sons of Israel have abandoned your covenant and torn down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left, and they have sought to take my life. So he said, go out and stand before the mountain of the Lord. And behold, let's stop there. Elijah comes, and he enters again, and God asks him, what are you doing here? And we laugh and go, what kind of question is that? Elijah could have said, you told me to come. What do you mean, what am I doing here? But I don't think God was talking about physically doing here. I think God was saying, what are you looking for here, Elijah? Because this is really the key here. Is God, what was it that Elijah was really looking for? If he's going to find the answers, he first has to know the right questions. Why are you here, Elijah? What are you looking for? And Elijah then begins to go off on, and kind of one of our responses is, the whole key issue is those other people who are bad. God, look at all those nasty people doing those things. I have been doing what I'm supposed to do, and they're not doing their job. And you need to fix those people out there. Isn't that usually our solution for the problem? Fix those other people out there? So God says, okay, well, here. He says, let me show you something, Elijah. So let me continue on. So he said, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord was passing by, and a great powerful wind was tearing out the mountains and breaking the rocks to pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And then there was a gentle blowing, the sound of a gentle blowing, a breeze. Okay, so God says, okay, let me show you something, Elijah. And he says, you go out and you stand by the mouth of the mountain. You're looking for answers? Let me show you something. And first, there's a wind. And we're not talking a little wind. We're talking hurricane force that was able to break rocks. We're talking one of the most powerful forces that we know on the earth. It was a wind type aspect. Then we're told after the wind comes an earthquake. And we're not talking a little, maybe 0.1 or 0.2. We're talking probably 0.8 or something like, or 10 or something. The whole mountain shakes. Another one of the most powerful forces that we know upon the earth. And then after the earthquake comes, then there's an inferno. We're told the whole mountain was covered in fire. I mean, this is a huge thing, like a forest fire, blazes that, we've heard of and all those around us. Another one of the most powerful forces that we know. And then after that comes, there's the gentle breeze. The word breeze, spirit, same word, Hebrew word. What was that all about? Kind of cool. Elijah was looking for answers. If only, and often like we do, if only something big, only something powerful. And God was showing him, he was showing three of the most powerful forces that we haven't even know of. But that's not where the answer was. The answer was in the presence and the Spirit of God. We see people on the field that are struggling because they see, yes, God's doing things, and we see that, and that's really cool, and that's good, but it's still hard. It's still hard. God is true. We believe it, and we know He's there, but it's still hard. And sometimes we're just wishing God would do something big. And what we continue to put our people back, the answer to success, whether it's going to be here or on the field, it is in that presence of God. It's not in that big things happen. Big things are nice. The mountaintop experiences, they're nice. But they don't really change life. Walking in the presence of God changes life. God here uses, God is an amazing teacher here. He uses illustrations that, the rest of us are going, wow, I wish I could do that. That's pretty amazing. God does this amazing teaching, and then he comes back to Elijah, and he's asking him the question to see just how much Elijah has picked up on that. So we continue on, and let's see, where are we at here? It says, and verse 13. Oh, I actually can push this button. Oh, there it is right there. Thank you. Then, when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out. There he stood, and behold, the voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Same question. See how much he learned. And he said, Then he said, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of the armies, for the sons of Israel have abandoned your covenant and tore down your altars and killed your prophets with the sword, and I alone am left, that they have sought to take my life also." Do you see now the difference between his answer from the first one to when he answers now? It's because there isn't any. It's exactly the same word for word. God has done this amazing teaching thing with all these powerful things, and Elijah goes right over his head. Doesn't even catch it. He's going, "That was really cool, God, but what about my problem?" And often that's what we're doing. God tries to answer us. He tries to help us, tries to see what's often, and we go, "That's really cool, God, but what about my problem?" Elijah's just pretty thick-headed right here. He just missed the whole boat. Didn't see anything that God was doing. But it's not necessarily that surprising that Elijah is a little hard-headed here. Because how many times has God tried to do things in our lives? Has he tried to work and around us, and we go, "God, that's really great. But what about my problem?" We miss what God is trying to do. Because a lot of times we're just not in the right place, our mind is. It's not surprising that Elijah didn't catch it. He's as boneheaded as we are. What is surprising is how God responds to him. The Lord said to him, "Go and return your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you have arrived, you shall anoint Hazael king over Aram, and you shall anoint Jehu the son of Nimshi
Even the
over
flawed.
Israel. And you shall appoint
After God's
Elisha,
display on Mount
son
Carmel
of
that
Shaphat,
day, and the
whatever
prophets
his father's name is, as a prophet in your place." We might expect God would say, "What do I have to do to get through this guy? How many times do I have to try and have him just totally miss what's going on? How many times does he have to screw up?" Because that's what we expect from God for us. We fail and we miss it, and we sometimes think, God cannot use someone like me. I'm just too much of a mess up. I am flawed. But God doesn't do that. Instead, he goes, "Okay, you're not getting all things, so let's just get back to doing one step at a time, shall we? I'll just share with you the next step. You go back to the place, and I'm going to get this person to help you, and then you go to this place, and I'll get that person over there." God doesn't necessarily have to be able to give the information, all of what it means and how it's going to work out, and because Elijah just isn't capable of taking that, and so God just says, "Let's do it one step at a time, okay?" 2 points that I see here. One is that as we chase in the life we live, there are a lot of problems. And we try different answers, and some work and some don't, but life is hard. And sometimes we're looking for the big solutions. We're looking for, God, if you'll just do this for me. But what we find is even when that happens, life is still hard. And God tries to help us to understand what you really need. He's asking, what are you doing here? What are you looking for? What you really need is my presence with you. I've got this for you. It's the most powerful force on earth, more powerful than all those other aspects, is my spirit within you working and leading. That's what you need. But even when we're not bright enough to pick that up, or spiritual enough, or whatever else, our God doesn't give up on us. That's the second thing, is our God works through flawed people. I see a lot of times missionaries on the field, and a lot of them are dealing with guilt. I'll mention this when we get to our thing. And we go, why? Because they're doing bad things? No, because they aren't the people they wish they were. They see God, they want to be more, and they see themselves as flawed people. But that doesn't mean God can't use them and he can't use you. God chooses flawed people because those are the people who have to walk with him day by day, step by step. No, you can't do it, but God can give you what you need to go forward. And if you are one of the flawed, well, welcome, brother, because that's who God uses the most. And so praise God for it. I thank you for coming. Let me speak this morning. And I pray God's blessing upon you. May he walk with you one step at a time. And may you find his presence a reality today. God bless you.